Thank you, Hans, as always, for centering us with beautiful music to begin. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbia Online, a congregation striving to embody courageous love, radical welcome, and deep connection. We are so grateful to be gathering this morning, remembering that our congregation is not a building, but a beloved community of all of us together. I'm the Reverend Molly Housh Gordon, the minister of this congregation, and I'm so glad to welcome you to our community. Although we miss gathering in person on Sundays, our online services have given us the opportunity to connect with folks we might not have met otherwise. We always wish to welcome anyone visiting with us this morning, particularly any members of the Jefferson City Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, as well as each of you visiting from Missouri or beyond. A few comments about protocol for our online worship. We are in Zoom and streaming live on Facebook. For those of you with us in Zoom, we are on webinar mode, so we can't hear or see you. No worries if you're needing to finish your breakfast or if your day is a bit noisy. You'll also be able to say hello and interact with the service on Facebook through the comments and on Zoom through the chat feature. If you're with us on Zoom, make sure you select everyone, our panelists and attendees, so we can all see your comment. This will be especially useful during the joys and sorrows portion of our service. A few notes about accessibility. We are using Zoom's native auto captioning service, which means you will see automatically generated subtitles at the bottom of your screen if you're with us on Zoom. On Facebook, captions will be added later. Sorry about that. You will have several options on Zoom for the captions if you click the transcript or closed caption button. If you don't want to see the subtitles or find them distracting, you can click hide subtitles to turn them off. If you prefer your captions to appear as a live transcript at the side of the screen, you can choose view full transcript in the same menu. We know that auto captioning is never entirely accurate, but we hope that it is helpful and that we can giggle where it is not correct. We will also be providing spoken descriptions of the videos and images we use. We'd like to invite you to contact us as well if you have any other accessibility or inclusion needs that we can strive to meet in our online worship. You can email me at minister@uucomo.org. If this is your first time visiting with us, we'd like to invite you to fill out a digital visitor's card to help us learn a little bit about you. And as always, I'd like to thank the folks that make our online worship possible. Thank you today to our online usher, Dottie Matthews, our worship associate, Sam Otten, digital arts video maker, Sam Buffalo, our stewardship team member, Jan Swaney, and as always, we are so grateful for our amazing staff, April Rodegaro running slides, religious educator, Jamila Batchelder, music director, Jeremy Wagner, and pianist, Hans Bridger Harris. As we begin our gathering, we're going to hear a bit of a stewardship update from our stewardship team member, Jan Swaney. Jan, thank you for joining us on Zoom this morning.
Good morning. I'm Jan Swaney, a member of the stewardship team, and I'm here to give you what we hope will be the last stewardship update of this campaign. Today closes the formal campaign, though we still have a bit of follow-up to do, and if you haven't turned in this year's pledge, you may get a friendly reminder from a steward. We are grateful to hear from so many of you pledging your support for the upcoming fiscal year as we build together to regather in person. I want to tell you where we are with the campaign so far. As of this morning, we have reached 228,000 pledges toward our dollar goal, and we've heard from 106 of our 175 families. Our original goal to fund our mission was $310,000. We want to let you know that it seems clear that we won't reach that goal, but we hope to come close. Through our conversations, we've seen and felt the impact of the pandemic on people's physical and financial health. We acknowledge these changing circumstances as we remember that true generosity is a spirit, not a number. We are so grateful for all the ways each of you supports our congregation, and we know that together, and only together, with everyone's gifts of time, talent, and what financial support is possible, we will thrive. Going forward, we hope to grow our digital ministry as we regather, and we believe that we are poised for a time of renewed energy and look forward to what lies ahead while striving in our mission for courageous love, radical welcome, and deep connection. If you haven't pledged yet and are able to, we are counting on you to help us finish out this campaign strong. We really do need to hear from you and from all of our remaining givers to plan a budget that meets our needs. Please fill out your pledge card or pledge online today. And we have one last love letter video to share with you as we conclude this pledge drive. Please enjoy.
I love UUCC because of the interesting RE discussions where we think of big ideas.
I love the Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbia because the institution and the congregation has supported me through thick and thin. A lot of thick and a lot of thin. Y'all have supported me when I was ill, when my family was hurting. Y'all have supported me when I've spoken controversial opinions that you didn't agree with. And we have a free pulpit. I love that. Ministers are not only allowed to, but encouraged to speak their conscience. I love that. And I love that I can speak my own conscience in the church and be supported.
Dear UUCC, we love you for many reasons.
And we are so grateful that we've been a part of this community since the summer of 2015. And one of the big reasons that we love you is that, especially through all the events of this past year, but even the years that preceded it, we know so certainly that we need community to survive all the ups and downs of life. And the folks at UUCC, you have all just taken hold of our hearts.
And we love you because you challenge us to live our beliefs and our values.
And we love you because the part of the way that you do that is through the services every weekend, and how Molly's words week after week after week challenge us to dig deep and to reflect and to take action and to explore, and that we are all in this together. And that's just so important for us to know, to survive, and to survive well so that we can go out and help heal the world.
And we love you. And because we love you, we gratefully support this community financially every month. And we have also included UUCC in our wills.
So keep on keeping on together. We love you.
And let us now bask in that love of our community as we settle in further to this time and space of attention together with our prelude provided live this morning by pianist Hans Bridger Harith. opening words this morning are by the Reverend Gretchen Haley of the Foothills UU Church in Fort Collins, Colorado. And Gretchen has produced a video of herself delivering these words, layered with an original song by the same congregation's music director, Christopher Watkins Lamb. The images in the video alternate between Reverend Haley's face and a video of a path beside a stream or small river. Reverend Haley is a white woman wearing headphones, standing next to a body of water with bare trees and fluffy clouds. And she will now lead us in our opening words.
Give up the fight for some other moment, some other life than here and now.
I'm just gonna breathe.
Give up the longing for some other world, the wishing for other choices to make.
Other songs to sing, other bodies, other ages,
other countries, other stakes.
Till I touch the sorrow neath the rage. I'm just gonna breathe.
Purge the past. Forgive the future. For each comes too soon.
Surrender only to this life, this one, this moment here and now.
Surrender only to this day, this hour, this breath.
Not because it does not constantly break your heart, but because it too beckons with beauty,
startles with delight. If only we can keep waking up to this gift. This is the gift we have been given.
These body clothes.
This heartbreak, it's ours. This pulse, it's ours.
This breath. This light. These friends.
This hope. All we can do is remember ourselves here.
I'm just gonna breathe.
All a part of it all. Still growing together.
I'm just gonna breathe. Until I'm glad to breathe here for a while. We'll give up the thought for some other love. Just hope in the way that you are living. We'll give up the thought for some other love. It's changing, no longer resisting. Come on and breathe, breathe, breathe. Come on and breathe, breathe, breathe. It's gonna breathe, breathe, breathe. Come on and breathe, breathe, breathe. Give up the fight, breathe, breathe. For some other life, breathe, breathe. Give up the fight, breathe, breathe. For some other life, breathe, breathe. I'm just gonna breathe.
We now light our chalice, the symbol of our faith in the community that holds us, and the bright flame of the human spirit that unites us. As we share an image of our church chalice on the screen, you may wish to light a candle at home or look in the chat for a digital chalice that you can light. And please join me in lifting your voices in homes across our city, country, and world to share our weekly words of affirmation, shown on the slide and also shared in the chat. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning. We are hitting the 1-year anniversary of the pandemic affecting our community, and we're starting to see the end in sight off in the distance. And after all these months of wishing and dreaming for the end, I think I sort of imagined it would end all at once, just like it started all at once. But it's actually been in bits and pieces, filled with new difficult decisions about what is too risky and what is safe enough, and uncertainty and not knowing how to make plans for the future. This has actually been one of the most difficult phases of the pandemic for me, perhaps for you too. I really did just want to wake up one morning and have it all be over. But we actually have a spiritual practice with the slow onset of a long-awaited change, especially here in Missouri. And that practice is watching the gradual ending of winter and the start of spring. Full of false starts, surprise last snows, trying to decide when the time is right to start planting our gardens, sometimes deciding right, sometimes wrong. So much watching and waiting and paying close attention to every little change that is happening. This slow unfolding of life. This month, we're exploring the theme of paying attention. And so for our centering, I want us to pay close attention to where we are in the cycle of the year. You may want to sit by a window while we center, or else just pull up in your memory the images and sensations you have felt in the last week. Breathe in and out. And try to pay close attention to the changes you have noticed recently. The new warmth in the air. The feeling of sunlight against your skin. The simple sensation of air against skin that is uncovered for the first time in months. The tiniest tips of green shoots just starting to poke out of the dark earth. More and more bird song filling the air. Buds swelling, waiting for that moment to burst open. And yet spring is not yet here. And still, this moment is special in and of itself. Beyond waiting, we can be right here and be aware of a time that is like no other in the cycle of the year. A certain quality of the light. The combination of warm air and cool breeze. the last opportunity to see the intricate lacing form of tree branches, the unique architecture of each tree. We can be here, right now, in this moment, with all our awareness. And we can bring our awareness out to each other, sharing this moment together.
And now, as we continue to hold one another in awareness, we will share an image of a lit candles and our joys and sorrows stones on the screen. I'd like to invite you to bring your loving attention and compassionate presence to our community as we share the joys and sorrows and prayers of our people. Let us hold one another in heart across the distance, remembering our connections and knowing that we are accompanied in love amid life's sorrows and joys alike. I'll begin by sharing the joys and sorrows submitted at our website, and then I'll invite those of you gathered to share your joys and sorrows in the chat. We join our hearts in grief upon the death of longtime member and elder of the congregation, Marian Yelmfelt, who died of jaw cancer on February 23rd at home at the Colony's Assisted Living under the care of hospice. We are grateful for the peace of her passing and that her family was with her, a thing not to be taken for granted in these times. We will miss her dearly. A service to celebrate Marian's life will be held at the Parker Millard Funeral Home on April 11th at 1 p.m. We also join our hearts in sadness with Joan and Steve Mudrick as they share the news that Patricia Patty DeFacio died on February 6th in San Antonio. She was the daughter of the late Brian and Chris DeFacio, former very active members of the church. We hold all of her loved ones in heart. We join our hearts in healing wishes to Dorothy Watson, who fell and broke her femur and is recovering at the neighborhoods and who would welcome your healing wishes and cards. We join our hearts in continued healing wishes to Ellen Atkins, also recovering from a recent fall. We join our hearts with Karen Bray, who shares sorrow at the death of her dear friend, Patrick Pritchard. And we share with you in your joys and sorrows, which we now invite in the chat. We share joy with one among us who got fully vaccinated. We hold in heart Connie Ordway and family as their beautiful dog Duke will cross the Rainbow Bridge tomorrow, and as they grieve his loss but are happy to give him the gift of no more pain. Ordways, we will be holding you in our hearts on Monday at 2:30. We join our hearts with Larry, who shares a joy that a vaccine suspicious and high-risk friend had the courage to get that shot. And we join our hearts with Lynn in sharing joy that daughter Jennifer is due to deliver a new baby little sister today. Many good wishes upon that labor. We join our hearts with Jim, who shares joy for grandson James getting a job in Aurora, Colorado. We share joy and relief that Pastor Dawson is getting a first shot on Tuesday. And join with Sarah in joy that so many more people are beginning to have access to these vaccines, and joy for sunshine and the coming of spring. Perhaps it feels like a weight is lifting, from our shoulders. We join our hearts with Angie, who shares concern and grief for a friend with a difficult and scary medical diagnosis. We join our hearts with Janice, who shares prayers for her mom, Anne, who fell and dislocated her shoulder in the wee hours of Saturday morning. We're glad she's a tough lady who endured the resetting, that she's recovering, and is also fully vaccinated. Healing wishes from us to Anne. We join our hearts with Katie in sharing concern for all the kids and staff in their classroom as they are all under quarantine. Well-being wishes for everyone. We join our hearts with Sarah, who shares concern for a family member who had cancer surgery and had to be re-hospitalized for an infection. We share joy with Megan for a successful 16-mile bike ride with a child and a puppy in tow. What a beautiful weekend we've had. We join our hearts with Stacy, who has many joys to share for fabulous rites of spring yesterday, on the weekend that should have been the True Falls Festival, and looking forward to a fest in May. Stacy also celebrates that yesterday was the 12-year anniversary of Linda and her each adopting the child they did not birth, and that yesterday was the 4-year anniversary of the hopeful end of a difficult time for their family. We pray that the joys coming into your life may be magnified and spread even beyond. Indeed, we pray that all of the sorrows, both spoken and held quietly on this morning, will be made a little lighter by the sharing in community. And we pray that all the joys shared and unspoken this morning may be increased and spread even beyond those who experience them into creating more beauty and more thriving in the world around us. These things and so many other prayers and yearnings of our heart, we hold together in light and in love for the week to come. Amen. And we will now share a song of response to our time of prayer, which is a vocal piece by Handel, Art Thou Troubled. It is performed in this video by pianist Adam Pod, who is not pictured, and by vocalist Brandon Hornsby-Selvin. The vocalist is pictured in the video, a man with brown skin and long dreadlocks sitting in front of a draped, cream-colored floral cloth. Let us continue in the spirit of love.
Art thou troubled? Music will calm thee. Art thou weary? Rest shall be thine. Rest shall be thine. Music, source of all gladness, heals thy sadness at her shrine. Music, music ever divine. Music, music calleth with voice divine. When the welcome spring is smiling and the flowers of earth beguiling, after winter's weary rain. Sweetest music doth attend her heavenly harmonies, doth lend her chanting praises in her train, chanting praises in her train. Art thou troubled? Music will calm thee. Art thou weary? Rest shall be thine. Rest shall be thine. Music, source of all gladness, heals thy sadness at her shrine. Music, music, ever divine. Music, music calleth with voice divine.
This morning's reading is the poem Allow by Dana Faulds, an American poet who roots much of her work in meditation. This is Allow. There is no controlling life. Try corralling a lightning bolt, containing a tornado. Dam a stream, and it will create a new channel. Resist, and the tide will sweep you off your feet. Allow, and grace will carry you to higher ground. The only safety lies in letting it all in, the wild and the weak, fear, fantasies, failures, and success. When loss rips off the doors of your heart, or sadness veils your vision with despair, practice becomes simply bearing the truth. In the choice to let go of your known way of being, the whole world is revealed to your new eyes. Here ends the reading. And now our musical interlude, which is Girl with the Flaxen Hair by Claude Debussy. It will be performed live by pianist Hans Bridger Harith.
Thank you so much, Hans. Last Saturday, when it was 63 degrees and sunny and our spirits and limbs were aching to stretch out from the confinement of a period of COVID-era life in sub-zero weather, I plotted how to tempt my children out the door. Now, my children love playing outside, but they also have a radar for adult-driven plans that the grown-ups are far too attached about. And my eldest, Nora, particularly has a habit of stonewalling suggestions that undermine her sense of control. Unless carefully framed, a suggestion for the walk in the woods I was longing for could very well yield a 3'7" barnacle attached to the bottom step, who shall not be moved. So on this beautiful and restless morning, I was looking for a plan that was really for me, but that would feel like it was just for her. And she'd gotten an Instax camera for Christmas and a new pack of film in the mail that week. That's this generation's version of the Polaroid. So I suggested we take her camera with us to the woods to hunt for signs of spring and to document what we found. Feeling like an artist and an explorer in equal measure, she enthusiastically agreed, and so off we all tromped to the woods. As soon as we arrived, I realized my plan was about a week too soon. There were not really any signs of spring yet to the naked eye in Cosmo Park. The occasional tiny bud on a branch was the most of it as far as I could see. The pond was still frozen over. But not one for her plans being foiled, Nora set off to wrest signs of spring from the warm winter morning. Me? I kind of checked out. Walking along behind through a cathedral of bare branches, lost in thoughts and plans, stressors and sadnesses, at some point, I found myself pulling out my phone for a quick, numbing hit. Just as I started scrolling Facebook with one eye and watching the path with the other, Nora came sprinting back. "Mom, I found a sign of spring!" She held up a blue jay feather. And sure enough, there was a whole array of feathers on the ground just a few feet ahead of us. Now, probably this was more a sign of a hawk attack than spring, but we took a picture together nonetheless. And the walk continued similarly, now with my phone mostly staying in my back pocket where it should be. Nora would race ahead on the lookout for magic while my thoughts wandered. And then she'd come shouting back, yanking me into the moment with a piece of moss, a blade of grass, a tiny bud, or a proclamation that the new piece of trail we were exploring would now be named Rainbow Dark Starshine. A preschooler will offer you infinite invitations back into the present moment. Often verbally and at great volume. "Hey, look at this! Hey, Mom!" But the first thing I want to remind you this morning is that you do not need a preschooler in your life to receive unlimited invitations back into the present moment. A crocus shouts just as loudly, if you're willing to notice. A feather ripped from a blue jay by a hawk will do it too, I guess, or the sounds of birdsong increasing each day, or the smell of wet dirt. Each one an invitation to attend. In the drudgery of our daily lives, paying attention often means something other than the rigorous, sustained focus we might associate with meditation or spiritual practice. A lot of the time, paying attention is simply our willingness to be called back to ourselves and to the beauty all around us. At the end of our walk in the woods, when we were all tired and hungry and the children were dawdling unbearably for adult timekeeping, Nora found a rock shaped like a heart. The earth is speaking to me, she said. It knows I'm listening. She held up the rock and stared at it solemnly. The earth loves me, she said. And I know to say it is anthropomorphizing that which is wild and powerful and free, but I think she's right. The sacredness of the world, its terrible beauty and its magic are always right here, alongside the drudgery and the numbness and the pain. The sacredness of the world is always here for us to return to and notice, and perhaps that steadfast presence is how the world loves us. Certainly our presence to that sacredness, our willingness to be called back to it again and again, our metaphoric listening is one step into a rooted spiritual life. The poet Mary Oliver, that bard of sacred attention, writes, "This is the first, the wildest and wisest thing I know, that the soul exists and is built entirely out of attentiveness." Our spirits are fed on what we notice. The word attention stems from the Latin ad, which means toward, and tendere, which means to stretch. So to attend is to stretch toward. And the word tendere is the same root for the English word tender, which essentially means stretched. And when we stretch toward the fullness of life, we are filled with such tenderness. I think our tender spirits are built for this stretching. It is what we seek in art and love, in faith, in all the ways we try to live our lives more fully, and our attention is where it begins. Writer and Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel wrote, "The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. The opposite of art is not ugliness, it's indifference. The opposite of faith is not heresy, it's indifference. And the opposite of life is not death, it's indifference. All that is holy in this life begins with us stretching toward life. Life, even in all its fullness of beauty and brutality. Love and art, faith and fullness, it all starts with noticing and caring." In her poem Praying, Mary Oliver wrote, "It doesn't have to be the blue iris. It could be the weeds in a vacant lot or a few small stones. Just pay attention. Then patch a few words together and don't try to make them elaborate. This isn't a contest, but the doorway into thanks and a silence in which another voice may speak." In this pandemic era, I have found myself at times paying greater attention close in. As our lives constricted, we were perhaps forced to notice the weeds in the vacant lot or a few small stones, and to give thanks and praise for little things because the big things were not going so well. And I rejoiced at every one of those moments that I found myself paying greater attention close in. But I will also tell you that in this time, I have had just as much detachment and numbness and distraction as I've had moments of sacred attention. The invitation to presence is always there, but it is not always accessible to our bodies and brains. Sometimes we must RSVP regrets because we are stretched too thin. And so the second thing I want to tell you this morning is that if you have experienced a confounding relationship with paying attention in these times, if you've been more distracted than usual or felt foggy, if you've felt your senses muted or a layer of gauze between you and the world, or even a period of more dramatic dissociation. If you've been hyper attuned to the things you don't want to be paying attention to and struggling to pay attention to the things you do want, or if you've just really felt the need to numb out some, 1, you are not alone. 2, you've not been doing any of it wrong. And 3, your body and brain have been working so hard to protect you. We've been undergoing a collective trauma for a year, magnified in many cases by related but very particular personal traumas. And when human creatures experience trauma defined as anything that is too much, too fast, our bodies and brains will shut down some capacities and magnify others in the service of our survival. Trauma messes with our ability to pay attention in the ways that we want. This week, I had to go inside a store for something for the first time in a while. And I know that many, including the staff I encountered in the store, have been forced by the immoralities of our economy into much riskier situations for the duration of this time. And I also know that many have experienced shopping in person as relatively safe throughout much of the pandemic. This is just where my self-protective behaviors played themselves out. I've been getting my groceries curbside. So this brief trip inside a store was a step outside my bubble, although it was likely very safe. The thing about the nervous system is that it doesn't actually matter to the brain whether danger is real or perceived. We behave the same either way. And so once I was inside the store, I noticed immediately that my body did not think it was safe. Although I'm sure most people were wearing masks and doing it correctly, all I could see was a sea of noses poking out the top and masks pulled down around the chin. And although it was spacious and uncrowded in the store, I was so jumpy anytime another shopper walked by. By the time I got what I needed and left, I was breathing shallowly under my mask. And when I got back to my home, to my family, I was inexplicably irritable and detached. I raised my voice to my spouse about something totally innocuous, and I had no patience for my children's whining, which felt so loud and aggressive that I wanted to scream or run away. I spent the evening somehow both tense and spaced out. And it's not always that way for me, and so I knew something was wrong. It took me a while to realize that I was stuck in a fight, flight, freeze cycle from being around more people than I have in a long time and from feeling that I was in danger. Once I realized what was going on, I used some of the regulation tools that I've been learning. I danced it out to some happy music. I deepened my breathing into my abdomen with intention. And I asked my spouse for a long 30-second plus regulating hug. And as I engaged all of these practices, I could feel my internal spaciousness, my flexibility begin to trickle back in. And I realized there's going to be a lot of this. There has been a lot of this. We've got a lot of healing to do. Trauma messes with the way we pay attention. When we are under mortal stress, our brains become hyper attuned to noticing signs of danger, or even signs of some previous danger that's no longer present. And bodies that have been in danger without closing the loop and restoring a physical sense of safety will just remain attuned to those signs of danger, essentially until we process and integrate a big stressful moment. We may get stuck obsessively paying attention to the things that freak us out and unable to focus on much else. And then we may get overwhelmed and to deal with that, detach and numb out or even dissociate from our bodies. And we may do some mix of all of the above. The day after my trip to the store, my muscles felt sore from clenching. And I thought very soberly about all who are in far greater danger every day, whether due to the pandemic, systemic oppression, or their intimate stories and lives. And I thought about all of us together in this year ahead, becoming slowly more safe, at least in regard to the pandemic, and trying to return to a shared public life, while some part of our brains will be reminding us that we should be afraid of each other. How will we build back the resilience to stay and open and stretch and be? How will we come back to ourselves? In his book, Trauma Sensitive Mindfulness, psychologist and trauma specialist David Treleaven writes, traumatic stress has a wide range of effects on attention. People with post-traumatic stress will often reflexively track for trauma-relevant stimuli in their environment, particular sounds, smells, or sights associated with a traumatic event. But, he continues, with practice, survivors can learn to direct their attention in purposeful ways that help support stability. Rather than being left at the mercy of their attention, they can steady their flashlight and regain a sense of agency and control. We do this, he says, by listening to the cues of our bodies as they become activated, and then by practicing redirection of our attention to anchors that ground us. Essentially, Treleaven recommends practicing a directed mindfulness, not simply paying attention to whatever is, some of which might trigger our systems, but guiding our attention toward what makes us feel grounded and safe. Identifying those anchors, as he calls them, gives us a tool for coming back to ourselves when our bodies and brains want to fight or freeze or flee away from us. As we look toward a time when we will re-engage with the connections of our world more fully, I think it would serve us well first to know and acknowledge that we have all been traumatized. Then to attune to the signals of our body becoming activated. We're going to be triggered by really weird things, y'all. I've started to wonder if I'm going to have trouble every time I see a nose inside a store. And most importantly, we're going to need to find ways to pay attention in a way that restores an embodied sense of safety in the world. We will need to attend the most, to stretch ourselves the most toward what helps us feel safe and whole, toward what we experience as beautiful and nourishing, like my daughter on the hiking path. We will need to anchor ourselves on what lets our tense bodies unfurl, and we will need to practice coming back to that anchor over and over again as we are drawn away from it. And so I'd like to invite you now to just spend a moment paying attention, thinking about what an anchor might be for you. What sensation helps your body feel safe? And how do you know? Do your shoulders drop a bit when you look at your dog? Does your breathing deepen when you pay attention to the feel of your feet on the ground? Do you feel a spaciousness in your core when you touch something soft? Let's take some time before we've moved fully back out into the connected world to search for what feels good and safe. That feeling of goodness can anchor you. It can bring you back. It can help you stay. And so this is the third and most important thing I want to remind you of this morning. In this year to come, as we engage with attentiveness as the work of the soul, we are going to need to pay attention to what feels good and warm and whole. And we're going to need to practice redirecting our attention there, coming back over and over again. The world is full of danger, and the world is dripping with magic, and our lives are sacred as we experience all of it. The invitation to stretch toward goodness, wholeness, and beauty is always available, and we can practice together. We will heal, we will praise, we will stretch, and we will be whole. May it be so. And I invite you to join me in singing our hymn, number 298, Wake Now My Senses, which is led in the following video by Leah Morris. The video is a panning image of evergreen trees on a mountainside taken from above, with soft orange lighting that could be sunrise or sunset. The lyrics of the hymn are overlaid on the video in white text, and they'll also be posted in the chat. I invite you to join in singing from home.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in awe. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end.
Now is the time in our service when we join in the spiritual practice of generosity, guiding our hearts away from the fear and scarcity all around us, and remembering that it is by sharing and supporting one another that we feel most human. This morning's offering is for the work of our beloved congregation, which is sustained only and entirely by your gifts. We invite you to give generously as we listen to another piece of beautiful music. Jeremy Wagner shares the following words as introduction for this song. The piece was written by Andrea Ramsey with the intent to give every girl a voice. She wrote a section in which each choir that performs this song writes their own individual letters to the world to be shared during the song. This song particularly honors Women's History Month. The screen shows vibrant colors with blue transitioning into red, and the lyrics are displayed on the screen. A link to support the church and donate will be shared in the chat.
Our closing words are from the Reverend Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage. For deep down, there is another truth. You are not alone. Even now, especially now, you are not alone. We are with you across the distance. Go in blessing, dear ones, and be a blessing to a world that needs our care. Let us sing our benediction, and Hans will lead us. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. We hope that you will join us for coffee hour, where we can see one another's faces and speak with one another and catch up in depth, check in. In our coffee hour, we have a moment to greet one another, and then we go into small breakout rooms. So if you'd like to join us, you'll get to catch up with a small group of 4 or 5. The meeting ID and password are on the screen, and the link will come up in the comments momentarily. There it is. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us this week, and invite you to join us again next week, when we will unbelievably and powerfully, I hope, be marking 1 year since the last time our congregation was able to gather in person. I am grateful for all of the ways that we've continued to love on each other, and all of the work and mission centeredness that we have been engaging this year. And I look forward to being with you next week to reflect. Take care and see you again soon.